You know what's crazy? The sentence, why can't you just? When you hear your girl, why can't you just? Why can't you just? Why can't you just? And it's usually followed by, I don't know, something where it's the opposite of how you operate naturally. Or it's something that you don't even believe in. Or worse yet, it's something that doesn't make any sense. Ultimately, it basically means that you're doing something or thinking something that's different than how she thinks and operates. And worse yet, sometimes she's even mad at you for it. That actually might even be why the sentence got said in the first place, is because she's mad at you and she's saying, why can't you just? Now, why does this even happen? Through the decades of counseling others and the different study and the experimentation, I have found that men and women don't respond to differences in the same way. Now, that's not going to be a revelation for some of you, but you might not know why or the depths of what that means. So, today's findings: men and women handle differences differently. Let's get it in. This topic is way more complicated and in-depth than this video is going to be about it. So for a longer video that explains way more, we can do that some other time. Let me know in the comments if that's what you like. But right now with these finding videos, this is just giving you an overview of the foundation on the underpinning of all the lessons that you're going to be learning here at Balance of Power, and which you have already learned. So we're going to go through things pretty quickly and pretty basically. So how the ladies handle differences. Women, when it comes to differences, you tend to reject differences. And when that rejection is at its most extreme, it turns into eradication of differences. And when it comes to the gentleman and how we handle differences, men, with differences, we tend to accept differences. And when that acceptance is at its extreme, it turns into reverence. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Oh, well, you're just making it sound like the women are automatically bad and the men are automatically good. Nah, there is, despite how it sounds, a positive and a negative, an up and a down, heads and a tails, if you will, to both of these. Neither one is automatically good, neither one is automatically bad. And I will explain. So the tails side of each, or the downside. The tail side of the rejection of differences for you ladies. It turns into how we started this video. Kind of a beef or a hatred of anything that's different than you. Even loved ones will get blasted by you. And you want everyone to be exactly like you, to the point where there will be, how did Einstein put it, harsh, violent opposition to any kind of difference, which is why I said when it's in its extreme form, it turns into eradication, where differences are not allowed whatsoever. And it gets pretty grimy in how sometimes you ladies try to get rid of the differences. And for us gentlemen, the acceptance of the difference, like I said, at its extreme can turn into reverence. And that reverence is not always bad, but it's also not always good. We can, at times, and you've seen it on these YouTube streets, have a reverence for people who we shouldn't. We end up following people and listening to people who will get us in trouble, or those who are not worthy of being leaders. We will attribute all kinds of extra clout and reverence. I'm trying to think of another word, but it's not really much of a better word, which is why I named it that in my study here. But it's something where we can get into trouble listening to and following the wrong person, all because we accepted these differences and we revere them to such a high degree. Now, the heads of it all, the positive side for the ladies, this is to form communities for you ladies. You eradicate the differences, or in the lesser form, you reject them because you want to create a shared experience amongst all of you where you can commiserate. The goal of that rejection and that commiseration is to make a situation in which you feel good. Everyone who's in that group, the goal is for people to feel good. And feeling good helps to start action, to instigate action, to do things. Humans tend to make decisions to do something once they feel good about it. And the heads for the gentlemen, we tend to have this acceptance in order to also create community, but our community has a different purpose. Whereas the ladies was to feel good, the men was to do good. We can get more done when we accept all of these differences, when people come together having a different set of skills. This guy has 4 skills, this other guy has a different 4 skills, this other guy has another 6 or 10 or whatever. All of these different skills put together and accepting these differences help us to get a lot of things done. And it might not feel good, but it does help with prolonged action. So with the ladies, it was starting the action off, because it might be hard for us to get started, but what we have helps us to continue prolonged action. So it is not to feel well, but to do well. So lastly, we need to talk about the crossover. What is the crossover? The crossover is the parts of us that attach or latch on to or end up in action or in feeling do the opposite. To explain what I mean, we're kind of like a YinYang symbol. Actually, it's one of the reasons why the YinYang symbol exists, that duality between men and women, and how even though there is the differences in the whole black portion and the whole white portion, if you look, there's that little dot of the other person's side, the other person's color. I'll give you an example. So on the woman's side, there's the yin, which is the white side, and it's got that little black mark. So think of that black mark as accepting of all color or accepting of all differences. And so the woman in their group, they will eradicate differences while they're in the group, but the acceptance portion comes in when they see someone who's outside of the group. Women will want to include that other person who is different, who is out there, try to pull them in. So there is I don't want to say illusion, there is an initial acceptance of she's different, let's bring her into the group, into the circle. But what happens is, just because you have that acceptance of that difference, that little black mark of accepting all color, all everything, once the person gets into the group, once that girl comes into the circle, then that's when the eradication happens. That's when it's like, okay, you were different when you were out there and we accepted you in the group. Now you got to be like everybody else. Now you got to dress like us. Now you got to talk like us. Now you got to move how we move, do what we do, believe what we believe. And if not, nah, all differences need to be eradicated. I mean, you've seen the movie Mean Girls.
And they've been inseparable ever since.
So again, there's that initial where it seems like it's acceptance, but it's really only acceptance to get to the eradication. So for the men, the black portion of the symbol with the white dot in there, that's the yang portion. Think of that as accepting all color, accepting everything. Everything gets drawn in. That's what the color black is. It's all colors mixed together. And the white portion is the exclusivity. So similar to the women, we accept in the beginning. The acceptance lasts way longer. But when it starts to turn into that eradication of differences, when it starts to turn into the it starts to turn into exclusivity for men. And what that means is you see it at the upper echelon of who we are, at the tippy top, at the king of the mountain. It's where we start to pare down and eliminate to see who's at the top of the pyramid, if you will. So think of it like everyone gets to play. You remember the King of the Mountain video? Everybody gets to play. We accept all differences. Everybody's got something different. Boom, boom. It's cool. But when it starts to get to who's going to get the best of something, who's going to get this level of this, or get into this club, or to get into this area, or get these things that we see as the best, the top, the most prized possessions of life, that is only for a select few who have the exact same credentials. Those credentials could be everybody's got to be a certain level of strength, everybody's got to be a certain level of intelligence, or a certain level of money, or certain, like, you have to, that's when it starts to be like, nah, bump differences. Like, to a certain extent, we still accept the differences of, we don't care what race you are, but you better be rich and you better be smart to get into this room. Or it doesn't matter what background you come from, it doesn't matter the amount of money, but you better be honorable and you better be able to fight to get into this room. Whatever it is, we at the end points, when it starts to turn into exclusivity, we are big in making sure that if you're going to be getting, especially if it's something really, really good, the top of the mountain, the tip of the pyramid, whatever it is, that no, everybody has the same set of criteria. That's when we stop accepting differences. That's when the flip happens for us. That was just a quick overview on how we handle differences differently. Yeah, I said that right. Like I said, this is just a very fast overview on how that works, and if you want a more in-depth video about that, let me know in the comments. But again, these findings is just to explain some of the underpinnings of all of balance of power and why it works the way it works, and so you have it in your brain, so when we go back to the main lessons, you already know what you're doing. So think about this lesson next time you have an issue with someone being mad at you for having different thoughts. If you need help, slide them this video. Alright, y'all. Till next time. Deuce deuce.